Hi, I'm Terence Heng, and I'm an assistant professor at the Design and Specialized Businesses Cluster at the Singapore Institute of Technology. My research background is in the study of diasporic ethnicities and race and religion in Singapore. I am particularly interested in the making of spiritual spaces and ethnic identity amongst Chinese Singaporeans. I came to write the paper, actually it was quite an interesting incident. I was involved in a research study in a major Chinese cemetery in Singapore called Bukit Brown Cemetery. And in that project, I was documenting the social and cultural life of the cemetery over a period of 1 to 2 years. A few years ago, I was actually having dinner with my in-laws at a small town centre called Teck Ghee Court in Ang Mo Kio. This was in the north of Singapore. And I just happened to be sitting there having porridge, well, actually it's rice porridge, a kind of Chinese dish. And this was during the Hungry Ghost Festival. And I noticed a zinc sheet on the floor, and on it was burnt offerings of effigies of what we call kim zua, or hell money. And I was very curious because I didn't normally see that in my everyday life. And I asked, so what are they doing? And they said they're burning offerings for the Hungry Ghost Festival. And I thought, well, that's very interesting. And I had seen similar incidents in the cemetery where people were burning offerings for their ancestors. And I thought, oh, this is really, really interesting in a town center, in an urban center, where you're not really supposed to be doing things like that on a random zinc sheet. So I thought, okay, let's take some photographs and investigate it. And the paper grew from the initial investigation, where I received a grant to do a bit of research and to investigate it and to speak to the people there. The main argument of the paper is that individuals make use of what I call transient aesthetic markers, things like roadside altars and offerings that burn and dissipate into space, as a way of overlaying their imagination onto a physical world. So I make use of Edward Sawyer's idea of first space, second space, and third space, where the imaginary second space is laid over the first space of very planned, government-mandated spaces. In this way, I also argue that individuals are trying to subvert, or at least unconsciously subvert, the kind of homogeneous ethnic identities that have been imposed upon them by previous state policies about Chinese identity. I would frame the paper in the discipline of sociology in the area of diasporic ethnicities, particularly about how diasporic communities make and create their ethnic identities through the use of material artifacts. I will also think about it in terms of spiritual space. So there's a certain element of interdisciplinarity with human geography and cultural geography in the study of sacred space making. I think it connects to political and social issues from a very individual and small scale and micro form of identity making. So it really isn't about large scale protests about policy or a very conscious subversion of identity formation by the state. In fact, I don't think that the individuals here are actually consciously trying to subvert anything. I think that it is through this kind of religious expression of their identity that they are performing certain aspects of a heterogeneous ethnic identity which they have carried over in cultural forms from their point of origin, not within their generation particularly, but from previous generations between China and Singapore.